So this is the second episode of the Diary of an Engineering CEO. Just introduce yourself again, Michael, and the company, if you don't mind, please.
Michael Richardson, Managing Director of ACT Group in the northeast of England.
Super duper. Well, the first one was about people. That podcast, episode 1, is available now. Wherever you get your podcast from, it will be there. Spotify or Apple. This second episode we've called Moments and Milestones, because people are really interested in how businesses grow from nothing to something. So I'm just going to ask you, Michael, to talk to us about the moments and milestones that got you from just an idea to where you are now. How many years on?
16, 17 we are now.
Okay, cool. So, first question I've scribbled down here is, when did you first decide to try running your own business?
2006 was when it started. I'd probably go back another 5 years before that, when I had visions of having my own business and trying to build some sort of success.
Why? Why did you want to do it?
The initial one was to prove I could do it, and that then developed into making engineering better, creating employment, and then leaving a legacy, really.
Because you said when we chatted last time that you had quite a bit of respect for one or two people who managed you in the early days, and you learned stuff from them. Was there a bit of you thought, I'm not talking about those people, but did you look at people in senior positions in business and think, I'm sure I could do that better than them?
Not really. I just think it's always about doing your best, getting it wrong, learning, and then next time doing it better. If that makes sense.
So it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And when you started, did this happen? You were getting paid some money, and then did you go, I'm going to do this? I'm pretty sure that for a little while I'm going to get paid less. Did that happen?
Yeah, well, I had a really good job, actually. Really good job. I'll not bore you with the details of that, but ultimately I went from a nice car, a nice salary, plenty of benefits, down to driving a van. And there's nothing wrong with driving a van, of course, but driving a van. But there is definitely something wrong with not paying yourself for 12 months, which was an incredible struggle, living on savings. And so, yeah, when I started, I went from a good salary to no salary for about 10 to 12 months.
And when you were chatting to you married then?
No, living with the missus, but not married.
So that was that a good conversation, or how was that conversation?
You're mad, was the comment, I think, initially. But yeah, obviously just it's a journey, isn't it? So my wife's fully supportive of that journey.
And at that point, I'm just asking you because I suppose a similar things happened to myself. But was there like, well, it's what he wants to do, and she trusted you, obviously?
Yeah, absolutely. She had 100% faith in that I would succeed, more than I did than myself, to be honest.
And how did this bit feel? It seems to me that maybe at the beginning, you can tell me if I'm wrong, there'd be times when you were employing people who were paid significantly more than you. Did that happen?
100%. For years and years and years.
Okay. And I think when we chatted once, you mentioned something like this. As that, over the 16-ish years, has that happened again? Has there been times where because things aren't always on the up and up. I mean, this company's had pretty consistent growth, it seems to me, ACT Group, but there must have been times where even after the first flipping few years, where the gang, the team, because there's 20 odd people now, were getting paid more than you. Did that happen as you evolved?
Yes, and through recent times with COVID and the challenges that's brought, that I made some personal sacrifices, which meant people were getting paid. If you look at the full package of what people get, the benefits and stuff. So yeah, in recent years, 100% that's happened.
But you've got a long-term view, it seems to me. So you kind of thought, well, it's what you do, because you're all about the people in many ways, aren't you? It's just what you do.
Well, it's look after the people that look after your business kind of thought, isn't it?
Okay. On this subject of people and how people think, you'll have heard this. Someone was talking about this the other day, so I thought I'd mention it to you. The difference between an employer mentality and an employee mentality. The guy I was talking to was talking about, well, when you're an employer, you just think differently. Have you got any comments or?
Well, I would agree with that. Completely think differently. Completely, how you look at things, how you perceive things, the things that are important to an employer will be different to an employee. 100%.
Is there an example of the guy I was talking to was saying, well, basically, when you're an employer, you feel responsible for flipping everything, you know? Is that the main thing, the fact that the book ends with you?
Yep, 100%. It's, feel responsible from the bottom right to the top.
Here's an interesting question then. It's not going too deep too soon. I think a part of being the employee mentality is that the employer is looking after you. So who looks after you? Because you're the employer.
Should kill us if I didn't say this. I guess my wife.
And do you look after you as well as you should, do you think?
Could do better, I guess, at times. Because you put, I'm sure every employer around the world does the same thing. You put things well before yourself when you're making decisions. And
your job title on paper is an MD, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it all sounds very posh, but correct me if I'm wrong. On a Tuesday, you're not an MD. Then you sign a bit of paper on a Wednesday, and then on the Thursday, you are an MD. It seems to me that that's what happens.
Yeah.
How do you learn to be an MD?
Goodness me.
What does it mean?
Well, I'll just say this. I think I might have said in the last podcast, the strongest business card's the one without the title on. And mine's got managing director on, but maybe at times I think it should have nothing on.
So you're judged more by what you do than what you're called, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
When you started off on the subject, it's a very basic question, I suppose. Getting the money to do what you did. How did you borrow? Did you save it? What happened?
A bit of both. Financial or bank support, and then all of me savings, not just some of them, all of me savings.
That's a tricky one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, tell us about it, yeah.
And were people, I've asked you this already, but I'll just to revisit in a second. I know you talked about your wife. What about the wider family and friends? Were you encouraged or discouraged or warned? What went on?
Obviously, my parents supported us because it's going back a long time now. But my father, in particular, was incredible, really, about the belief and the support that he gave us, and still does, to be honest.
And was there a bit of advice? I'm just curious. The answer could be no, because I've not primed you for any of these questions, really. Was there a bit of advice that your dad gave you, either relating to the business or before that is loudest in your head? Is there anything there?
There's nothing to lose. I think there's, it's a journey.
More your savings.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but that comes and goes, doesn't it? Money comes and goes. It's not like hope we're a long time away from it, but you don't all run to a grave with buckets of money, do you? So it comes and goes, that. So I think it's, it's a journey. You'll succeed or you'll fail or something in the middle. And what have you got to lose?
Okay, cool.
Apart from stuff.
Seems to me you might have had more to lose if you didn't do it.
Well, exactly, yes, absolutely.
Who was your first proper customer who you think, cool, I've got them to believe in what I'm trying to do? Do you remember? Or your first customers?
Three there was. DLI, NTG, Responsive.
Okay, so your first three customers. And you got them just by this was you, wasn't it? Because it was just you.
Yeah. I was managing director of myself, yeah.
And did those three quite significant customers come quite quickly?
No. Had to earn my stripes, as they say. So months, if not maybe a year or so.
Were you surprised by, I suppose we'd call it the lead time now, how long it took between the hello and actually getting someone to believe in the new company? Was it longer than you thought, or did you get frustrated?
It's frustrating, but I think the best customers take the longest.
Okay. And ultimately, you'll know this now, if you've been doing it for 16 years, do they tend to stay the longest?
Well, we still deal with all three of those customers, and so, yeah.
That's really significant. Where was your first office? Or was it a garage?
Garage in Gateshead, yeah.
So this was the garage of your home in Gateshead?
Yes.
So were you cold?
Freezing. Especially in the winter, yeah.
Okay. And you said you had a van, so you got your first vehicle pretty much at the beginning?
Yeah, little black van, caddy van, VW caddy.
Brand new?
Yeah, brand new. Okay, treated myself to a brand new van.
Marvellous. So was that the first big investment that really made you think, flipping heck, I'm doing this properly?
That and computers and stock, which was about 10 grand's worth of stock initially. Yeah.
Okay. You've got more than 10 grand's worth of stock now, haven't you?
Yeah. Just a bit.
Okay. So your first significant team member who came along and you thought, oh my goodness, thank goodness they're here. Do you remember that feeling where you thought, oh, maybe the first one or two people?
Yeah. Well, my dad, Karen, Tony.
Yeah.
Those three were the first three people after myself. So yeah, and that was it was exciting because they come on board, but nervous because they were costing a lot of money.
And did they have precise roles, or was it squashier back then?
No, it was so accounts, my dad, Tony sales, and Karen logistics.
And this is interesting. I was thinking this earlier. What were you modelling this on? So a business structure is generally within certain categories that there's a way of doing something. How did you know what to do? Was it a mixture of experience and instinct? What did you do?
Those you've just mentioned, but I wrote a business plan with 5 pillars, and it was built around the 5 pillars, which were capacity, profitability, people, etc.
Okay. We've talked about these before.
Yeah.
Did you think about getting the best people for a small young business? In my experience, is really hard because you've not got the flipping lovely offices, it would seem to me, and this is where I'm going to work, and it's not quite all bean bags and big tellies, you know.
Yeah.
But how did the subject isn't about what they thought, but what you thought. Did you think, I'm going to have a nice place for them to work? How did you think about creating a good place to work?
It's a good question.
Not necessarily the physical side, but how did you get them to believe in something that only really existed? You know, I mean this respectfully.
Yeah.
It only really existed in your head.
Yeah.
You'll have been turning over tens, hundreds of thousands. It would seem to me you weren't.
Yeah. I think it's to get them to buy into the long-term vision, the marathon, as it were, the 10-year, 20-year journey. You know, and I still do today, present people what's, as you said, in my head, of the ideas and the vision and the dream, as it were. And then alongside that, I think they know that they're gonna get looked after. If they get on the bus or get on the train, you know, they'll get looked after.
So it seems to me there's 2 things there. Then second thing first, you're a good, you know, none of us are perfect, but you're a good bloke. You're not going to take the mick out of anyone. You wouldn't have had flipping 3 customers you got in year 1 that are still here after 16 years, and 3 or 4 employees who are still here from
the same. Well, 14 years, 15, 14 years. Yeah.
So my question was, it's the vision. You said the vision. What did you say that the plan was?
Well, I let them into the business plan and the 5 pillars, and you know, about making a difference and making a change and not just selling stuff.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because earlier you were saying things along the lines of it wasn't really about the money. The money was a byproduct of doing what you do well, making promises and keeping them.
Money comes and goes, Mike, as you know, and you get money today, it might be gone tomorrow. It's a bit like a pay rise or a bonus or something like that. You get it, and if that motivates you on Monday, what's going to motivate you on Tuesday? Because you cannot have that every day. So there's got to be more to it than what's in your back pocket.
And on this subject of growth and what it means to be in business, I suppose, this is something I wrote down. you'll probably know what I mean by this, but when did you first feel you had a proper business? Because at the beginning, I mean it respectfully, because it's like, oh, I've got this idea. It's just an idea, it's just some guy with an idea. When did you think, you know what, this is a proper business?
I think when we moved here, 6 years ago. So after 10 years,
right,
ish, 9-10 years, we moved to Hebburn in I think it's 5,500 square foot.
Okay.
Offices, stores, stock, systems, digital, integrated, all that. Then, offices with logos, brands, all the things that you would associate with. This looks like a real good business. I think that was the moment of change.
But what about the fact that I'm going to tell you something about me now? So I wander in here, right? And I go, what the hell's he got all this for? Because you've got this massive place 6 years ago, and there's hardly anyone in it, hardly any desks in it. So basically, you had no flipping, no qualms about it. You must have been thinking, well, I'm going to fill it. One of these days, it's going to be needed.
Well, the lesson there is when we moved from the Team Valley to Gateshead, I can't remember the size of the facility, but at the time we were rattling around in it. And I thought, no, the place before here, and within 14 months, we'd outgrown it.
Right, okay,
and I thought, hang on a minute, I've made a mistake there. I haven't looked beyond 1 or 2, 3 years. So then when we came here, I looked 10 years and thought, right, in 10 years, where will we be and how big does it need to be? And actually now, after 6+ years, we're just starting to now think, we've got to think a bit more imaginative to how things fit in and where people go.
Well, you've been knocking walls down and putting walls up. I don't know if you'll be able to articulate this. How many times bigger is this than the previous office?
5 times bigger.
5 times bigger. So you went 5 times bigger in one move.
Yeah.
And you didn't think, I'm bonkers.
No. I don't think anyway at the time.
Okay. So there was definitely a time where I don't know. I'll stay on the same subject. So you go, okay, right. We're quite full now. So I'll go. So it's not like we're quite full. We'll go a bit bigger. We're quite full. So I'll go 5 times bigger. Did no one say, you sure you know what you're doing?
No, nobody said that to us. I'm sure many thought it though.
No, it's good. It's good that people just kind of think, well, he must know what he's doing then, because clearly you do, because this one's full now. Yeah.
And then we're looking to potentially in the future move the oil division out of here, because it's obviously getting bigger and bigger. So that's we're going to look at putting that in its own facility as well.
Has the oil bit of the business taken you by surprise? Because did you go, oh my goodness, actually oil's quite big. These drums are quite big.
Yeah.
Because cutting tools are quite small.
It's down to the team, like mine, I must say, because I'm no oil guy. Like the rate of growth and the customers that we're fortunate to service now is, it's gone from half a dozen, say 3 years ago, to now 150 with, on our digital portal, I'm going to guess at about nearly 4,000 machines that we're managing with the health and safety aspect that's required. So the growth is huge, absolutely huge from a customer base point of view, and then service.
This chat is episode 2, and we're calling it Moments of Milestones, and it's just, as you're doing, you help me to understand the significant points in the growth of ACT Group. You're quite an optimistic person, it would seem to me. Is that the way it is, or is there a difference between how you are on the inside versus how you are on the outside?
I've always, I think it's just the nature of my makeup, when something goes wrong, and it does, is to find the positive in it, because every single thing that goes wrong, there's a positive in there somewhere, and you can turn it to your advantage. So I've always been like that. I've always been optimistic. I say I don't deal very well with negative, but what I mean by that is I find the positive in it, so I don't need to deal with the negative. I deal with the positive inside of it. That makes sense.
It does make sense. I think sometimes it's just looking for the positives. I have to say, perhaps most people just don't. Reinvestment is always interesting because as you grow, of course, your flipping fixed costs go up. Moving to a premises 5 times bigger, and your other costs. You know, how many vans have you got now?
I think we've got six or seven.
Okay.
6 or 7. Yeah.
How do you get the balance? The canny. I don't mean canny necessarily in the northeast sense. The canniness to not go silly and wrap up your cash into assets that you don't need, but at the same time not underinvesting. How do you make decisions around investing in infrastructure?
So I always try to put the capacity in before you realise the growth.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other way that people might do it, or companies might do it, is that they realise the growth and then they'll put the infrastructure in to support that growth. And we've always done it the other way around. And the main reason for that is so that customers don't feel that they're paying a supplier's growth's experiencing.
So, correct me if I've got these figures wrong. I'm not going to talk numbers, but percentages. In the last year-ish, you've increased your workforce by about 25%.
Yeah.
Your top line sales has increased by towards 10%.
10%, yeah.
And it seems to me, in my experience, most businesses do it the other way around. They can't, but something suffers because either customers or quality, capacity planning. Your capacity planning looks ahead, and you must be optimistic to do that. 10% top line.
Yeah.
25% increase in numbers of human beings, because that's not cheap.
No.
But you would rather do that. Well, to be honest, your track record supports this kind of decision making. Is that okay to think like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's a risk, but it's calculated, isn't it? Because I would expect the growth on the 25% investment to then go to double of the 10%.
And the bit that businesses don't normally talk about, and I'm going to ask you this because I think I know what the answer is. If not, we'll just cut this bit out. No, I don't think we have to. So, you're the kind of guy that employs people before you need them sometimes before you need them in the day-to-day to keep quality up, to make sure customer care doesn't dip at all. So, how many times have you had to get rid of people?
Get rid of people.
Downsize. Because for whatever reason you've got
never.
Okay.
Is the answer to that. I just think get rid of them. Well, there's two questions
okay,
there.
I'll reframe it. It's not about performance. Okay, it's about the fact that you, as the leader, you've got no one to answer to. You're it. So you basically thought, oh my goodness, I've employed too many people. I'm gonna have to go.
Never. Answer to that one's never.
Well, that's justification for me asking the question because I thought that was the case. The reason I asked it was because a lot of people who've got the approach that you seem to take have also got I'll just get rid of them if I don't need them then. But clearly, obviously that's not what's happening here because of what you just said. But the reason I asked because I think that's what some people do.
That is along the statement that I hate and hear too often is, well, it's just business, which is if that statement defines the right to be a complete nut arsehole, let's say, and say, you're not good for me anymore, get rid of you. And what people feel, again, it might be business and it comes with challenges and you have to make decisions, but ultimately the people you employ they are people with families and mortgages and commitments and I'm quite passionate about the fact that if you come and work here, it's for as long as you want to work here and not want to just bring people in for a spell and then we'll get rid of them because they've done what we needed them to do. That's just wrong at so many levels.
And if we listen to episode 1, people will hear you do your quiz about your people. The subject I'm on there is whether you actually give a toss about your people. We were talking about what the bloody cats were called and things like that, so clearly you know them. And of course I brought the subject up because it's just my opinion, and we don't mind, if we don't talk about that darker side, it's kind of getting away with it. It's half the story because some people who are listening to this won't know you or the company. What was the first indulgent thing you bought yourself where you thought, I've been doing this a few years now. I work quite hard. I'm a bit tired. I'll buy myself one of them.
Crossfire. I can't even. What's the make of them again? Chrysler Crossfire.
What's that? A Porsche car?
Kind of. My wife used to call it Spitfire, so I used to get it mixed up. It's a little red thing with 2 seats, and yeah, I wish I'd kept it. Actually, I haven't got it anymore.
And how long had you been going when you got yourself a Porsche car?
I'm gonna say 6 years. I think 6-7 years.
So you've done your time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Just a little question before we go into the last little bit. Any regrets? Has anything come into your head and go, oh, flipping heck, I wish I'd done that differently?
That's self-analysing, isn't it? All the time, if I'm honest. I couldn't name any, but constantly looking in the mirror and self-critical of, I should have done that different, could I have done that different, could I have done it better. I mean, on a daily, weekly basis, I would say that I do that. Because
you constantly think, oh, I could have done that better.
Better's the word, definitely. Improving, might have a reasonably good business, but for sure it's not perfect, and I'm far from that as well.
Okay. This is a little tiny bit about balance. I was just thinking about this. So do you get enough time off? Do you switch off enough, do you think?
Best ask the wife that, I think. It's a tricky one. I like to think so. Maybe overall, probably yes. Individual days and weeks, probably no.
You do long days, don't
you? Yeah. I love it though. I enjoy it. So it's like the word balance is if you're doing something you love, how do you define the balance? Because you're doing something you love. It's looking after your thirds, isn't it?
I suppose it's at the eights, like.
Yeah, the eights, yeah. So you're 30% sleeping, 30% working, 30% doing what you love. But if you love working, then you're 60% doing what you love. So it's interesting, the word balance. It suggests that the 30% of working you don't enjoy, so you need to do more of the 30% that you love.
You built something that you genuinely like being in. Still.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Just before we move on to a couple of things, talking about the future, was there a time where you had to pick yourself up and not quite, I'm going to pack this in, but was there a time that was the not just to cheer everyone up, including you, just when you thought, oh, fucking hell, this is doing me head in? Was there a moment like that ever?
COVID. That was really challenging. Did
you just think the business just can't work in this circumstance? What did you think?
I questioned myself, actually, not the business, because that is was a real curveball of like, well, what do you do now? How do you manage these scenarios that COVID brings? But you just, I guess you have those moments, and then you just knuckle down and get yourself through, get yourself on the other side. But yeah, that was really challenging. The other one would have been a couple of customers going bust on us within, I'm going to say, maybe 6 to 8 months, 4 6-digit numbers, which I thought, why am I bothering, kind of thing, especially on the way that came about. They're probably 2 moments in time that jump out at us.
When you got bumped for a few quid, did you?
Yeah.
On that subject, I want to ask you this. Did you adapt your behaviour as a business after that, or did you basically carry on pretty much as you were?
Carry on as we were, because other people's moral compass, that's their issue. That's it.
I mean, the reason I asked that, and this is the truth, I didn't know what you were going to say to that. I sometimes think businesses adapt their behaviour to their worst customer, and I always think that's a mistake. I always think it's the wrong thing to do.
You should never, if you're doing it the right way, you shouldn't change because of someone else's behaviour. And ultimately what I'm saying there, 2 companies' behaviour and lack of moral compass shouldn't have changed how I conducted myself and our business to market.
Stayed in a hotel recently, there was a sign by the kettle and the cups that said, "Do not steal these cups." And I thought to myself, that doesn't make me feel good, because you're implying that I might be a bit of a thief. But
Yeah.
clearly, someone was
Somebody
making
is.
calls.
Somebody's a thief.
But they thought, well, anybody could be a thief. I didn't go back, you know.
Yeah, there's an underlying owner that's very paid off there about the cups going missing.
That's right. And I'm just mentioning this. It's like, you know, I've often said if I had a cafe and I had a toilet in there, I go, if you want to use a toilet, come and use a toilet, you know, and then buy a coffee next time you're in. Not toilets are for customers only. That kind of
Yeah, yeah. So a man comes up and knocks on the door and says, look, I've just travelled 300 miles and I'm absolutely going to, I need the toilet. Sorry, you need to buy a coffee. And then there's a puddle outside of the door that they've got to clean up. So you'd rather let them use the toilet, surely, wouldn't you?
It's a strange thing. Okay, so the last thing is a little bit about the looking forward, because you've been good enough to chat for half an hour, and it's just the chronology of, as I said at the beginning, it's the moments and milestones that got you from a notion through to a 16-year-old category, 15-ish-year-old category leading supplier in the north of England. What kind of targets are you saying? This isn't about money. What things are you wanting to achieve in 2022 now? So in the next 3 to 5 years, what are you thinking what do you want to do? Maybe just the top 2 or 3 if you don't mind.
Well, expansion's a big thing at the moment. So generally in the 2 divisions, continue that the journey with those 2, the cutting tool and oil division.
Is that geographically or market share or both?
Both.
Okay.
And then geographically, continue our expansion in Northern Ireland, and then we're going to open a branch in Scotland, and then likely push further afield to the northwest as well.
Okay. Just the last question that came to me just before we started talking is on the subject of growth, I suppose, and it's about what drives you. I was thinking as I was coming to see you here today, I kind of got what drove you at the beginning, you know, wanting to make sure that it seemed to me from day one it was about the accuracy of prescription, because it was, well, what's the point of the bloody wrong cutting tool, you know? So, because it just makes engineers better engineers if they've got the right cutting tool. So you were driven by that, you were driven by the challenge of being paid a fair amount of money to be paid now, to being willing to be paid obviously more in time. I guess I understood some of what drove you in the early days, but what drives you now? Is it the same things or is it different things?
Still the same to an extent, but also I think more about watching other people in ACT succeed and grow. It really does give us a buzz. So if I go back in time, when I got my first order was a buzz. When I won my first tooling package was a buzz. When I won a contract, a customer contract was a buzz. And then as that grows, there's lots of nuggets in there. But in recent years, it's been watching other people in ACT succeeding and winning and etc. And so that's the thing that drives us more, to expand into areas, to watch other people jump on the coattails of ACT and use that infrastructure to grow and to be successful.
Okay. That suggests that you're very confident about the future then, because these people that you're watching flourish and blossom, it's in a nice environment that you believe in.
I'm 100%. I mean, don't get us wrong, there'll be bumps along the way like there always is, but I'm 100% confident in all of them to succeed and continue to succeed as well.
Okay. Right. We're done. Thank you.